And we're live.
Hello, this is the RPG Pundit, the final boss in Internet Shitlords. And I hope, let me know if you guys can hear us. Um, I'm here tonight, as usual, with Venture Satanis and Florida Man RPG, aka Job. And tonight we've got a number of topics that we're going to cover. Um, but before we start, let me say one thing. Because I've been watching the recent events on Twitter, and there's been a lot to be like really pleased with. And if you're a gaming person and you weren't on Twitter before, or you were and you left, well, if you were banned, maybe you're going to get unbanned, right? But if you just left because the environment was so crappy for so many years, this could be a good time to come back. It's really popping now. And probably the best thing I've seen, I don't know what you guys have thought about this. I mean, there's been a lot of great stuff. Obviously, they're bringing people back. Trump is back now and everything. But the best thing I saw of this whole thing so far, and Benjer and Job, you guys can discuss this with me after, is the photo that came out. I think it was the night before, of Elon at 1:30 a.m. in the HQ there with the coders, right? And you see these guys, and somebody else put a picture comparing it to, like, there was a Twitter promotional photo of the Twitter crew that someone put out like a few years ago, right? And the Twitter crew was all these women, right, that were very clearly part of the crowd that mostly spends their time making TikToks about their day at Twitter. And mostly white women also, right? And then the new crew have all been, the guys that are the coders, which are really, all of them are previous employees of Twitter. They're these guys who are almost all, there's a couple of white guys, some Asians, and some Indians, right? They're all dudes except for like one or two girls who look absolutely badass, right? And they're all so happy in that photo, because you can imagine these are the guys. These are like the 50 autistic nerds that were keeping Twitter working, right? And for the last 10 years, they had to deal with the other 7,450 employees all being a gang of absolute fucks and acting like they owned the place and acting like they were the important ones, right? And now it has been proven that none of those people mattered, because they're all gone now and Twitter is still working. So this teaches you something. I'm not just talking about this because I want to talk about Twitter, but it teaches us something, right? Some people say, oh, well, you can't fight the influence of wokeness because it's institutional and whatever, right? What happened at Twitter proves that you can get rid of all of the people who think that the wokeness is important, and everything will still work, right? Because these people are useless. And so if it can happen with Twitter, it can happen with the RPG hobby. It can happen anywhere else. Anyways, that's my intro chat. I'll leave it now. Venger and Job, if you want to add anything about that, and if not, Job, tell us what you think our first subjects should be. Job?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Oh my god, I had a mute challenge there. Well, just to comment on the Twitter thing, I don't know. I mean, I've worked in IT for decades, and I mean, if you take a site and you stop doing any kind of updates to it, I mean, you can make it run almost indefinitely. There's some keep the lights on work that the IT engineers would have to do. That's what I do. Make sure everything keeps running smoothly. But I mean, yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised that they could fire 90% of their staff and have the site just run fine. Whatever features they were doing before Elon, rolled up on there, I'm sure they're, whatever algorithms to turn your children gay or whatever the fuck it is that Twitter was working on. It's probably not what Elon wants to work on. Um, you know. I'm less impressed that the site still runs with nobody there. I mean, if you're not rolling out new features or doing any kind of continuous integration, site to just stay up. I don't know. What do you think, Avenger?
Uh, I haven't noticed too much that's changed on my end. I keep hearing that all these people are getting more followers and more interaction and engagement. I haven't seen that. I don't know why. So Twitter is just kind of like
Avenger, do
working
you know what a
normally. Is it
computer is? Do you know what a server is?
barely? That's that thing where you walk in and then there's like strippers everywhere and then like foam and the disco
You're thinking
ball. Is that the server?
That was startups in the 2000s. Now we're in the
Okay.
really boring era.
All right. Yeah, I'm a little behind the times. But yeah, that's it. I mean, it's cool, and it's if everybody else is having a good time, I was already having a good time on Twitter. But if everybody is like catching up to me, then that's fantastic. Way to go, everybody else. I have probably because I've been blocked by like half the people that play role playing games
I get you,
on
Avenger.
on social media. So
Totally.
I don't have to deal with a lot of the ass hats because I'm already pre-blocked. So I don't see them, and they don't see me. And without that engagement, things run pretty smooth. Just talk about old school gaming and movies and stuff like that. So yeah.
Now, you know,
Too early for that, Avenger. Cut it out.
I've been
Hey,
in the
if Tucker
same
can do
kind
it,
of
I can
feel
do
the
it
same way.
too.
I feel the same way as you do, Venger, right? That I've always loved Twitter. I've always described Twitter as my favorite MMORPG, right? But I have to say though that now, ever from these last couple of weeks since Elon took over, it has been more fun and more exciting than I remember than any time I remember from when I joined, except maybe for the couple of days in 2016, right after Trump won the election. Those were probably the greatest 48 to 72 hours in the history of Twitter for me. But these 2 weeks
Yeah.
have like beaten everything else, right? Because it's just like watching the hysteria, the tears of our enemies, and looking at all the insane stuff that's popping up. And Elon is like this ringmaster, right? That is just like he's playing all this as a total show, right? I mean, he did a goddamn poll to find out
Yeah.
if he's gonna unban Trump, right? He's like the
Even
master
people,
showman. They got someone running it that is like making a point of making it more exciting,
yeah, even people on the right were like, "Oh my God, Elon's doing a poll." We're like, "What if people say no?" I'm like, "Dude, just chill out. He's trolling you. He's trolling everybody. He's gonna
Yeah.
let Trump back on no matter what, even if it's like 60-40. Like, don't let Trump back on. Eventually, he's gonna let him back on. He's already
Yeah.
said that he
But
would."
in the process, though, what he actually did is he caught a ton of bots, right? Because the
Yeah,
leftists
I heard about
send
that.
like millions of bots to try to tip once again to cheat on the election, the thing that they like
Yeah,
to do. And
and he's also playing the Democrats at their own game because they're always like, "Oh, my democracy," and it doesn't get more
he's like, well, this is
democratic
democracy, and he won the
than like
election.
just
Sorry.
a poll, yes or no, and
Yeah.
majority rules. That's your democracy. And then of course the libs are just like, "Oh my God, no, that's the wrong kind of democracy,"
Yeah.
which is what they do when Republicans or conservatives win. They're like, "No, that's the wrong democracy. We don't want that kind of democracy. We want the other democracy where we win all the time."
Their whole slogan this last election was basically, if you want to save democracy, you can only vote for one party, right? Like,
Yeah,
that's not democracy.
yeah,
That's one party rule, is what you're saying. What you're
yeah.
calling it there.
That's
It's crazy.
yeah,
One thing I've been enjoying on Twitter though, I think maybe they Elon blocked some of these bots because it seems like all the sparkle trolls have kind of been on the run. Like they've been like spouting their bullshit, and I see like Sylvia pop in or who is it, Raven Wolfgar or whatever pop in
yeah.
and
Yeah.
start beating on them, and there's no one coming up to back them up anymore.
Yeah.
Have you guys noticed that at all?
I've noticed that some of the kind of most notorious wokest type people, both in and outside of the RPG field, you watch posts that they're making now, and those posts get almost no traction, right? And especially the ones that, there's a couple of accounts that I suspected were just like, sock puppet accounts for other people, right? And those used to there used to be, I think, this whole network of sock puppets that were backing each other up, right? They were essentially liking the same guy liking all of his own shit and things like that. And now that doesn't seem to be happening, because I'm guessing some of those got banned, right, for being bots, basically. So yeah, I do think that there's been a real change, and there's a change in the algorithm, right? You can very clearly, there are accounts that I haven't seen randomly in years that I would only ever see if somebody quote tweeted it, or if I remembered to look at their account, that is now showing up in my feed again, right? People I'm subscribed to, but that for years the algorithm was set up so I would never see what they posted, and that's gone now. Anyway, we should probably get onto the topic of gaming here, and we're transitioning from this to talking
hold
about
on a second. First, I wanted to talk some serious stuff about your review of the Book of Antithesis.
Oh, okay. All right.
I don't know.
What do you want?
I feel like you didn't really read the whole book. It was really fucking obvious from your review that you just didn't understand it or something. I don't know what happened.
Did you even try using the spells, Pundit?
I don't do children's magic, Avenger. Sorry.
I feel like you didn't really understand what was going on there. Like, like one thing in the review, you kept going on about chaos magic, and if you could point to the chaos magic in the book, I'd be really impressed.
Well, I mean, you're basically talking in there about eidolons, thought forms. You've got all of the shit that's popular today. Even throwing bones. I mean, that's something that's been. I mean, obviously that's not originally chaos magic, but it's
magic.
That has been embraced by the chaos magician hipsters. It makes sense you're wearing a lumberjack shirt right now, because that's the lumberjack shirt and the beard. You could be the hipster chaos.
No. I'm wearing my American dad pajamas, my Christmas pajamas, and I got my other articles of power, my focus objects behind me, like my ape, my daughter. They gave me this ape. There's actually an array of spell powers that you didn't even pick up on that are going to slowly destroy you.
I'm quivering in my boots.
You can't blame chaos magicians for wanting to use what's good or what works. That's like blaming a Chinese buffet because they included sweet and sour shrimp. When of course you're going to include sweet and sour shrimp because it's awesome.
Let me try to explain it to you, because you're right. Some of the stuff chaos magicians do does work, in a sense. In the same sense that if you snort coke, the coke is going to work, right? And it's going to do something, right? The problem is that it's really just a one-trick pony, right? The classic chaos magic, the sigil, right? That the reason it's popular is twofold. One is that it's super easy, and the other one is that it actually does work, right? But its potential for effect is minuscule, right? So what it means is that, yeah, sure, it'll work, but anything you're doing when you do it, it's something that either would have happened anyways, or would have worked anyways, or something that by trying to manipulate it into working is going to end up being backtracked, washed away anyways, right? So it creates this momentary bubble of workability that cannot be sustained, because it's based on trying essentially to extend your will into the universe and impose it on the universe, rather than to be able to work with the natural forces. So it's a type of witchcraft as opposed to a type of natural philosophy. But because it's easy, simple to use, and does actually seem to do something when it happens. And I mean, so there are moments where you can use it, and it can work, right? If you were meant to win at gambling, and you're, you know, and you're good at gambling, and you what have you, and you do a sigil, you'll win more at gambling, and that would work, right? But if you know, if you're trying to use a sigil to cure your hepatitis, that's not going to happen. You know, you'll feel a little better for a bit, and then it'll be gone, right? Chaos magic.
Yeah, obviously you gotta stick your finger in a goat's anus to cure your hepatitis.
If magic was convenient, then everybody would be doing it, you know. And what you guys do with chaos magic is the equivalent of the New Age movement with its, you know, positive intentions. It's exactly the same fundamental basis. It's saying, if I concentrate enough and I direct myself enough, then I'm going to change the world around me without having to change myself. And that can work for a tiny little while. And that's why it's both continued to be popular and also never actually been useful to anyone, right? That's the history of the entire New Age movement, positive radical thinking, magic sigils, chaos magic. There's one place where chaos magic works very well, which is in advertising, right? Because again, that's if you're trying to convince someone to purchase something that they would already want to get, then using chaos magic makes them want to get it even more, and then they'll pick it up, you know.
Okay, there's still, I'm not advocating for chaos magic in the book, and I'm tying. Well, I'm not even doing it. D&D has already done it. D&D is a tradition that's tied to the most ancient human traditions there are, which is just sitting around the campfire and telling a story. I'm not calling D&D a story game, by the way, but you know what I'm trying to say.
D&D is connected to the fundamentals of myth and of storytelling.
Correct.
Right? And I think
yeah, and that's what I'm trying to play out in the book. I think you would maybe be able to understand that, but I don't know. I mean, you were born in Canada, so.
Well, the thing is that you're in your book, you're talking about using these magical techniques, and as I point out in my review, what a DM does is already a magical discipline. It's just not calling it that, right? And you don't need to throw in trappings from postmodern occultism, I'd say, to make that work, because the DM, if he learns his DM skills, he's already doing everything he needs to do. He's creating this virtual world. He is separating parts of his own consciousness to create NPCs that have their own personalities, which is again, that's an eidolon, right? That's exactly what is written about. But you don't need to explain, oh, this is what it is, right? You just need to show someone how to.
I think there's a lot of people that never put that together. They're not part of that. I've read about that tradition or magic or myth or anything. They might not understand that, pundit.
Right. You're saying it from your own perspective, and that's because you're already immersed in it. If you try to think it from a perspective of just like, maybe not a noob, but someone that's maybe been DMing for a handful of years and never went past like the 3 core books in terms of digging deeper into the philosophy or the metaphysics or the occult or magic.
Shut up, Venger. No one called on you.
No, hang on. Venger's actually, I understand what you're saying, Venger, but there's
he's wrong.
But here's the point:
you asshole.
If you're going to be trying to encourage someone to figure this out as a DM, why not use the language of RPGs to explain to them how to do this as a DM instead of bringing in the language of pop culture occultism, right?
It's the same as showing someone a 2-dimensional thing versus showing them like something in 7 dimensions. Like, you just get a better feel for the entire thing if you're seeing like extra angles that aren't there if you just show them like, well, this is basically the ropes for role-playing games and dungeon mastering.
No, but you can explain to them. You can explain to them everything about how to, you personally, as a DM, immerse yourself into a virtual world. You know, you could teach them about concentration techniques. You can teach them about how to put on the mask of another personality, right? That power of concealment that magicians have. All of that without using a single occult term. And I would argue that that would be more credible, right? Because there's a bunch of people, there'll probably be a bunch of people in the chat. I haven't even been looking at the chat. Sorry, guys. But there's probably a bunch of people in the chat that would be like, you know, if somebody gives them a DMing book that's full of, oh, and you have to make a pentagram, or, you know, you've got to write a sigil and then come on it or something like that, right? Then those people will be like, no, fuck you, dude, right? But if you explained it all to them in this context of mind techniques, of concentration, of being able to let go of your own identity for a moment to allow another identity to manifest, all of that sort of stuff, they would be a bit more likely to look into it, right? I would think so.
Well, how many role-playing game guidebooks, you know, go into the occult versus how many just talk about just game mastering and role-playing without all that other stuff? I mean,
Well,
I feel like it's like
this might end up changing the topic, but most
like 9
GM
times out of 10, it's just going to be
shit,
like
right?
standard, whereas
I
that
mean-
one time it's going to be like above and beyond, just normal guidance for role-playing games or game mastering. And I haven't read the book, but
most game
it just
mastering
seems like-
guides are complete garbage, right? There's like a couple of RPG books that have real game mastering chops to them, and like just a tiny handful out of the decades long history of RPGs, because most of them,
and one of them is not GMing like a
like a
motherfucking
fucking
boss.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
There's nobody except you.
How to game master like a fucking boss. That's probably the best guidance for role-playing games.
I'm sorry,
game mastering
well, how to play
ever.
your games, maybe, I don't know, but
You turned me off
My
when you
game
told
is
me
the
to
only
shower in the
game.
first fucking 3 pages of the book, Venger.
There are no other games besides Venger's game. Anyway, what'd you say? What about the first 3 pages?
the best DMing guide I ever saw was actually the DM advice that was found in Amber Diceless Role Playing and Shadow Knight, the Amber source book.
And you
Eric
compared my
Wujcik
book
was
to
a
that book,
master.
right?
Eric Wujcik, by the way, he could have written it all in the context of Buddhist studies, right? And Taoist internal alchemy, which he knew a lot about. I had a lot of conversations with him, and he was a real expert in Chinese occultism, right? But he didn't. He just wrote it all in the way that, you know, a DM would understand without having to infuse the language and jargon and techniques that were very clearly borrowed, that would have been very clearly borrowed from Taoism or Buddhism, right?
You killed the conversation with Buddhism.
Apparently so. Well, I invoke Eric Wujcik.
Okay.
Who can disagree with him, right? It's not.
Pundit. All this stuff to say is, I declare a wizard war.
Okay.
Which I've already clearly won. So let's get to the next topic.
No. Pundit is supposed to be this powerful wizard. Can he turn me into a toad? Turn me into a toad, Pundit.
I don't know what kind of wizards you believe in there, Joe, but look, I could do a number of things. I can humiliate you online, for starters, but the other thing I can do is have a much more successful career in game designing than you have. I mean, that is thanks to magic.
But he does
I'm
live
use
in
my
Florida.
magic right now. Turn
He
Pundit
lives in
into a
Florida.
toad.
You live in Uruguay.
To become a game designer that makes thousands of dollars a month on this and has not yet been canceled in spite of me being me, right? The only explanation is because I am an adept of the mystic arts. You know?
Or maybe you're just Aleister Crowley's spiritual butt buddy.
No, I mean I like Uncle Al. Don't get me wrong.
Oh, I know you do.
You can't do anything to me Joe, because I've got all of the Abramelin squares, right? You guys have your little sigils. I've got antiquity on my side, right? And the power of the Holy Guardian Angel.
Mm-hmm.
My magic extends back into prehistory.
It does, in the sense that you like to play with sticks, but
Well, my magic is from the future. So see you tomorrow, bitches.
we're looking at a dark future Avengers, right?
Yes, indeed.
All right, let's look at some of the comments here. I dread to see what people have been writing about this bullshit.
Oh, Lord.
Chris Miller says, I once cast a spell from the Necronomicon in Sumerian, and a bolt of lightning hit my house on a cloudless day. Well, that Sumerian Necronomicon is kind of bullshit, Chris. I hate to tell you.
How much fentanyl did you have
How much
in your system?
Terrence Schul says, I just love the fact that the three of you are determined to make RPGs into the very thing the fundies were raging about in the 80s. That's true. We would be like Pat Pulling's nightmare, or maybe she'd be overjoyed that she actually found three guys.
Well, no, that's what I actually did. Pundit, when he made Invisible College, made a very dry textbook, which is very interesting, but it is just a history book of magic.
I made an RPG that is actually playable, that doesn't go around pretending that it's going to teach you to be a wizard, but it's actually playable, and where the magic section tells you more about magic than your whole book, Job.
The parts that you read, which apparently was just the headlines, the chapter introduction. Anything else compelling here? Or should we jump to the first
hang
topic?
on. I'm not going to tell him.
Jack of 71 says mine extends into Chult, which I assume is magic.
Blaine Crichton says, didn't expect a debate on the occult, but nice tangent.
Sorcerers are Three Stooges fighting.
Like Spinal Tap arguing about Stonehenge.
Yeah.
Chris Miller says, there's a place for two-dimensional pop occult. Job's book is just fine. Oh, well. Betrayed by my own publisher, dude. Terrence Schul says, I was told the true path of magic power was staying a virgin until 40. Well, you've got a pretty unlikely group here for that, given that, all three of us have been married at least once. And
I'm working on three.
One of the three is still getting regular sex because he's not married anymore. So
I don't know what your marriage is like, Pundit, but it's very different from mine.
Well, it could be.
I don't know you were married, Pundit.
Buy anything about your lady there, Job. Sorry.
When were you married?
Just a generic marriage joke. Oh, I was married for several years.
Like in the 80s or like what?
No, from the early 2000s until the mid 2010s.
Oh, wow.
We're going here? We're going into your past, your deep, dark past?
No, not really. Actually, she was a great woman, and we had the most amicable separation in the world, right? Like no conflict whatsoever. We're still good friends.
And she was a biological woman?
Yeah, biological woman, yeah. Well, she spoke French, but apart from that, she was normal, yeah.
Oh, it must be a French Canadian. Those are the worst.
Anyway,
we're trying to alienate all of our audience. I just saw two viewers just drop. Those are the French Canadians and the.
Bob Couture here has a good comment. He says RPGs could be a form of objective art, as in from Gurdjieff. Examples of objective art are rare in so-called fields of the arts, but are more frequent in life. Example, in the conducting of a group, the manipulation of the scale, perhaps for 10 minutes, a genuine atmosphere is created. That's a quote from Origins book on Gurdjieff. Yeah, I definitely agree with you. Well, see, Gurdjieff is another very fascinating occult figure. And I would certainly say that RPGs are a form of objective art, yes.
I think we got a serious. Pundit. I think we got a serious question. I think it was addressed to you from Neckbeardia. So, how do you summon a succubus to suck your soul out of your dick, asking for a friend?
I don't know about that one.
See, I knew your magical powers are so limited.
So let me tell you
I
something.
can answer that question. I choose not to.
Look, if you want to have wild, ecstatic experiences in Magic, trying to summon demons is the stupid way to do it. What you want is to summon angels, right? Think about it. The saints, right? The Catholic saints, they're constantly in states of ecstasy, right? They're always having, like, look at Saint Therese de Lisieux, right? The saints that are like in the throngs of passion as they pray, right? To the saints or to the angels, the Virgin or whatever, right? Ecstasy is not demonic; it's angelic, right? And it's the same. Like, look at Tantra, right? In Tantra, you're not summoning demon beings to astrally fuck, right? You're summoning devas, right? You're summoning divine beings. You're summoning the Istadeva, the angel of your heart, right? You're summoning these forces that are the higher and not the lower. The lower is actually where you tap into debasement, right? But it's not so much ecstatic as it is how would you put it, nihilistic, right? It's where you go to become lower than human, as opposed to having these experiences of being higher than human. So there you go. I don't think that was a serious question, but I gave it a serious answer. Adino the Esnite says, not to downplay Job's work, and I'm sure there might be stuff in the book I might be able to use in my game, but the book just has no interest for me.
That guy's a reach.
Emery Calamy says, the sorcerers are three stooges fighting. Well, one of the three of us wasn't even trying to fight there, Emery. Don't need to.
One of us actually created a sacred tome of game mastering, and the other two are just pretenders.
Oh, Steve Roberts says, Venger's magic can't even extend his own bedtime.
And I quoted what I answered. I responded after that saying that I do my best work, my best magic after bedtime.
Oh, all right. That's a good
I think this is a good conclusion here. Great Cthulhu said, imagine you want to listen to your RPG podcast and you get 35 minutes of impromptu lectures on chaos magic and angelic tantra blowjobs. All right, so we should probably talk about our first topic here.
Charlotte Williams says, I like hearing pundits Eric Wujcik stories. Thank you. I like reminding people about Eric Wujcik. He was a great guy. All right, you want to go on to an actual topic, Job? Go ahead.
Yeah. Talk about Death of WotC. So, I mean, I think you already did a thing about this, pundit, but it was the what was it? 3 Wizards of the Coast is now going to hire 3 diversity consultants to overlook any work coming out of Wizard.
Right. Well, there's been 3 big recent bits of news about Wizards of the Coast, right? And we should probably start with the first one, which is that Wizards of the Coast lost money this quarter, right? They did badly, and that's an interesting thing in and of itself, because it was doing very well before, right? And now it is starting the process of going broke. Second is that they did a reveal of the first chapter of the Dragonlance book, their new Dragonlance campaign book, and it has every sign of being the D&D 5th edition's answer to The Last Jedi, right? It's going to be a complete butchery of Dragonlance, and is likely to be very badly received. And then third is that because of Spelljammer and the Hadozi, the monkey creatures in Spelljammer that are perfectly normal, your standard uplifted animal style monster race. But because leftists think that black people are like monkeys, which is a horrible thing to think, and only idiots would think that, but apparently the entire left does. They have decided that the Hadozi were horribly racist, and they went after Wizards of the Coast. And in response to that, Chris Perkins did an article on D&D Beyond where he vowed that from now on, whereas in the past they used cultural diversity consultants for specific things that they thought should be looked at, from now on, every single word, illustration, and map in every D&D book will have to be reviewed multiple times by at least 3 different types of analysts before it gets published. And books that are already in print, whenever a new printing comes out, will go through the whole process again, because we all know that in 6 months' time, what was once progressive and brave could by 6 months from now be white supremacy and evil, right? Because that's how quickly they're trying to move their radicalism. So these 3 things put together indicate to me a company that is making some very serious mistakes, at least. What do you have to say about this, Joe?
Oh, crap. I was muted again. All right. Well, I have one thing to say first before we go any further, is that we got a super chat from Chris Miller for $10. Thank you very much, Chris Miller. And Chris has to say, learn to use Marion Magic to improve your game and your personal life. Pick up the Anchor RPG today.
Some good use of advertising money, right? Because, like, Chris spent $10, but he immediately reached 60 people there. Like, and not to mention others that will see this video later. That's very clever. All right, carry on, Joe.
I forgot what we were talking about.
We're talking about Wizards.
Wizards of the Coast.
Or Venger, you pick it up if you want to. I don't know, Joe.
I forgot what I was going to say, Venger. You say something.
Okay. See, I save most of the time my pot smoking for after the show. So that's a little magical technique that I picked up in the Himalayas, Tibet, with Ace Ventura. Anyway, so I think Wizards of the Coast, yeah, they're doing badly. They've been doing badly for a little while, not only financially, but I think a lot of the people have just woken up to the fact that it's just virtue signaling, social justice warrior, woke nonsense. And even beyond that, it's not just like underneath it all. They're not taking Dungeons and Dragons seriously with the adventuring and the risking your life to gain like treasure and fame and glory and all that stuff. Just adventures where you're like a coffee shop barista, or you're in like current year Seattle. That's not real D&D to a lot of people. So how could it succeed? How could it do anything except fail and eventually get woke and go broke? Just like coincides with that perfectly. And you're seeing a perfect storm of, how far the mighty have fallen. Plus, with 6th edition that they're going to unleash, like basically a year from now, and we know that's going to be a giant shit show because they're getting away from actual tabletop, like face-to-face role playing, and they just want to institute like a virtual space with microtransactions and where they control all the stuff and the IP and getting rid of the open game license. And certainly some people are going to like jump on board. Of course they will. But there's got to be like as much as 15, maybe even 20% that's just going to be like, whoa, hold up. No, thanks. Not interested. Like, I'm going to stick with 5e I'm going to go to old school or Pathfinder 2 or whatever. And there's no reason. There's no reason to like glamp on to Wizards of the Coast, especially when I think, in my opinion, I've been saying this for years and years, that the whole woke thing is a fad. And by 2024, it's going to be pretty much dead and gone. And the only people that are going to be left, like, waving that flag are going to be the stubborn holdovers that you saw 20 years ago with the hippies and the flower power and peace and the bell bottoms and like freedom rock, man. That's what it's going to be like 10 years from now. Like, you look back at those people and you're like, that's adorably sad and pathetic. I hope those people get help someday. That's what woke is going to be 10 years from now. And so I foresee a massive crash and burn, like the meteor hitting Earth and making the dinosaurs extinct. So if you have like the OG gamer, if you have stock in Wizards of the Coast or Hasbro, get out now, sell. I'm not a financial expert, but I see disaster ahead. Not just next quarter, but like the next 2 years for Hasbro Wizards of the Coast. It could be like apocalyptic.
Well, given if there's a recession, and it certainly looks like there is, then that's going to compound the situation if Wizards is producing crap, right? That's one of the reasons that in other areas, like you got, what's his name, David Zaslav over at Warner, he's cutting everything that is woke, not because he doesn't like woke, but because he likes money, right? He just wants to get rid of anything that he knows is going to be unprofitable. And like I was listening to what you were saying there, Venture, and I don't know if you've heard about this, if you saw it in my video or not, that in the Dragonlance book, the Dragonlance book starts with a fishing contest, right?
And I saw that.
And you have the other one, the Radiant Citadel starts with a eating contest in a night market, right? And stuff like this, right? So you're totally right. They are like, when you think about what is the format of the classic D&D adventure, it's like chapter 1, you meet at the tavern, right? And maybe buy your equipment, right? Chapter 2, you march over to where the dungeon is. Chapter 3, you're going into the dungeon and you're fighting monsters, getting treasure, trying to survive, Chapter 4, maybe there's a big boss and you have to fight the big boss or stop the thing, prevent the demon from coming out of the gate or whatever, right? Chapter 5, you head back home, you divvy up the treasure and you level up, right? And nowadays in like the Wizards of the Coast model, it's a completely different orientation, right? It's like step 1, you select your pronouns. Step 2, you have some kind of a food tasting event, right? Step 3, you possibly end up meeting diversity cultures in a setting that looks medieval and pre-industrial, but where everybody acts as though they're living in 2022 San Francisco or Seattle or Portland, right? Step 4, you identify the only white male NPC in the entire book and realize he's the villain and kill him, right? Step 5, you get some kind of treasure, and then probably what you get is a lot of gratefulness from the diversity community, which may demand that you also pay them taxes because, reparations. And that's it. That's your adventure. And then maybe you can get XP if you like, but it doesn't matter very much because no one plays a 5th edition campaign for more than 6 adventures. So this is it's a complete difference in what they're doing from what the standard model is. I think if you're saying 15 or 20% are going to leave 1D&D, I think that's ironically a very conservative estimate. I suspect that there'll be more, especially because we also know that Wizards is planning to move completely towards the digital tabletop environment. And that right away will take out everybody who would rather actually play pen and paper RPGs, which is it's a stupid thing for them to do because not even all the hipsters prefer digital, right? It's just that they think they're going to make more money from digital by selling microtransactions.
All that money is going to go straight
Shut the fuck up. Just to
Wizards of the Coast.
just pundit. I mean, Venger, shut the fuck up, not pundit. We're 2 super chats behind, so
who's supposed to shut the fuck up?
I have to interject here.
Let him do the super chats. Let him do the super chats.
Okay, so see, we went so long here. Ironcaster gave us $2. Thank you very much, Ironcaster. We very much appreciate it. It's largely being blamed on Magic, not D&D. Now, I don't know what he was talking about because it's been 5 minutes, but okay.
He's talking about how the Wizards of the Coast lost money this quarter, and that's right. There was some big problem with Magic, right? But you also look at the sales of the recent D&D books, and they have been steadily dropping.
Okay, and then we also got a question from Joe the Lawyer for $9.99. $9.99. High-level POV question. Lacking a Paizo-type company to take advantage of WotC's failure to come, will smaller third-party publishers benefit? Will the OSR get a new research?
God, I hope so.
I think there's also one more thing that I failed to mention is that the rumor is, and right now it's only a rumor, I've never seen anybody confirm it, that with 1D&D, they're planning to remove the OGL, right? Like they're not going to, the 1D&D edition is not going to have third-party products, which makes sense if they're moving to tabletop because they're going to want it all of the stuff to just be stuff that you make on their virtual tabletop and only for their virtual tabletop, so they keep holding the control of it, right?
Yeah.
So that means the DMs Guild is going to be gone if this is true, and if that is true, you're going to have a whole bunch of people who are trying to make books for 5th edition with the D&D logo on it that won't be able to do that anymore. And some of them will give up. Some of them will make, third-party 5e products because they can still hold that, but they can't put the D&D logo on it. But I think some people will look for something else. And I think there might be somebody that will try to make a 5e clone in the same way that Pathfinder was a 3e clone. And there'll also be some people that'll go to other movements, and the biggest movement after that is the OSR, right? So there are going to be people that are going to be like, well, fuck you, Wizards. I'm going to do old school stuff now, right? And I think the OSR, whether or not there is like a Pathfinder type alternative to 1D&D, I think that the OSR is going to benefit, and the OSR tends to benefit the more that D&D, the official D&D, sucks, right? If the official D&D is doing really well, the OSR kind of slows down, and and then it starts picking up again when D&D starts.
I think to answer Joe the Lawyer too is I don't think there will be a Paizo type company because people don't remember that Paizo didn't come from nowhere, right? Paizo was doing Dungeon and Dragon print magazines. Before then, so they were set up, and there was a lot of people who had, gotten used to Paizo through that.
Yeah. And like you have to have a certain amount of resources because you could get 50 people making a 5e clone. I mean, I could make a 5e clone, right? Yeah. But if I don't have $1 million to make a company that can actually get that book out into bookstores and promote it in the right way, it's not going to be like Pathfinder succeeded because Paizo was a big company. It's not a little company. It wasn't at the time. It's actually much smaller now than it used to be because they were
directly tied to WotC before it. You know what I mean? And then they were like, oh, hey, we're in this great position. We're just going to come out with our own version. So it's not going to happen again. But I do think that, third-party publishers will benefit from, that's always been the prism that, however whoever's owning D&D's IPO goes, the rest of the end follows.
Kobold Press maybe could do it. I don't know.
Kobold Press?
They could make a 5e Pathfinder type thing, yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, yeah, you're right. You're right. They're actually in a position that they could do something like that. I just hope it isn't.
Do you guys remember? Do you guys remember when, like a year or two after 5th edition came out, and everybody in the OSR was like, "Is there even going to be an OSR like a year from now?" Because 5th edition kind of like stole the thunder.
I did.
from the OSR, and a lot of people, I would say maybe 30-40%, were just like, oh, well, we've kind of been like supplanted and subverted, and now maybe it's better off to just like, if you can't beat them, join them, because fifth edition is a lot closer to the OSR than, obviously third edition, definitely fourth edition. And a lot of people were thinking about just like hanging it up, but also a lot of people stuck with it. And then they saw the downturn of content and how crappy Wizards of the
Yeah.
Coast was running D&D to the ground. And then they were like, okay, well, maybe there is an OSR after all. Like,
Yeah.
maybe there is value in
right?
doing
Like,
the.
as Wizards, when 5e came out, the OSR started to drop in influence, let's say, and then as 5e started becoming woke, you start to see the OSR picking up again, right? And suddenly,
Right.
like now, these last few months, the OSR has been doing more exciting stuff than it has in quite a while, right? It's been really begun. There are new people that are doing stuff, right? The Red Room and a number of other guys that are producing OSR products that are interesting and worthwhile. And why is it? Well, it's because 5e is now, it's very clearly not producing the sort of stuff that people actually like,
Yes.
not even 5e people.
Benji, are you trying to look intelligent by holding that Rubik's Cube up in front?
I'm trying to stop people from like turning off the stream, because there's not a lot going on visually.
Oh, we're doing pretty well. There's
Are we?
we're doing
Okay.
pretty well for a normal stream. We
Okay. Well, then yes. Then I'm trying to look more intelligent.
Yeah. No, you don't look more intelligent because
look at my IQ.
there's
Look
no-
what I could do with this.
you haven't matched a single color on that bitch. Come on.
I know. That's because this is beyond me. Like this is if this is an intelligence test, I failed. I don't get it, but it's colorful. I like the colors. Yeah, I like the fact that you can like move this little things around. That's pretty cool.
Oh Lord.
Look, I got like half green.
Okay, we're at peak audience. It's time to shield, bitches. And you
All
guys
right.
have your shields from last week. You're up, pundit. Go.
All right. Well, I'm still promoting, I guess, the Sword and Caravan, Medieval Adventures on the Silk Road, and Social Encounters along the Silk Road. Social Encounters is now available in print because so many people demanded it. It's not an adventure book. It's not a book of like adventuring encounters. It's actually a rules. It's a 20-page rules supplement that has all kinds of stuff to expand the reaction roll rules from the OSR to let you adjudicate different social situations as a DM when they come up, complex social situations like haggling, recruitment, intimidation, debating, making your case at court, all sorts of stuff like that, right? Commerce, and it gives you a set of rules that allow you to maintain the emphasis on role playing. So it's not like the social mechanics of the new school style, because it all depends on what the character says, and what approach they have, but lets the DM figure out you have a system to be able to regulate what the reaction ends up being. And people who have bought it have thought it's very useful, apparently, because it's doing quite well. It's already a bestseller, and there's you might want to check it out. It is not really for the Silk Road. It's just we put along the Silk Road because I did it as a supplement to Sword and Caravan, but you can use it for anything, certainly anything fantasy. So there you go. You can get that. It's a silver bestseller on drive-through, Sword and Caravan. Check out Lion and Dragon. And while we're at it, given the first topic of this show, what it turned out to be, check out The Invisible College, which is an RPG that will not teach you real magic, but by the time you finish reading about it, you will know more about actual Hermetic Western occultism than probably my two co-hosts. So be sure to check that out. And besides that, it's a really exciting modern setting, occult conspiracy, secret agent RPG. It's also a big bestseller. And I've just found out that the publisher of I did not pre-approve this, by the way, but I'll allow it anyways. The publisher of the Invisible College has, which is Wellaword Press, has come out with Invisible College merch over on my Twitter. I've retweeted it. They have now. You can get now an Invisible College logo T-shirt and an or long sleeve shirt. I don't know which of the two. And an Invisible College tote bag. So there you go. Be sure to check those out. And check out all my other products. Still working right now on the NPC book for Sword and Caravan. And also soon to arrive will be the next Gonzo compilation of RPG Pundit Presents. So that'll be the compilation for Gonzo and Weird Fantasy resources. I guess that's it for me.
Benji,
Okay.
you've
Yep,
got the Encounter Critical 3 up there. I don't know.
Okay. Yeah. The crowdfunding for that is over. If you're still interested in getting that or Chult hardcover books, get in touch with me. The Encounter Critical 3 PDF is at the proofers right now. I've got several proofreaders going through it, and some have already gotten back to me. Some are going to get back to me later this next week, and I'm going to make improvements on that based on what they say. Fix the typos, and they'll probably have good suggestions along the way. So fix that up, and then send that over to layout. And then sometime probably before Christmas, the PDF will be ready and up on DriveThruRPG. Probably late December. So yeah, that's pretty cool. It took a while. I purposely slowed down and the introductory scenario to take a while to come up with. It's very involved and a lot of different pieces, and it's I think it's a good balance between social interaction, combat, and exploration, and also environment. You've got some like urban city stuff, and then you've got some like overland wilderness stuff and dungeons. So I think it's a pretty great introduction to not only your typical OSR Gonzo setting, but I think it's a good introduction to Chult, and I think it's just a dynamite scenario, just introductory or not. So I'm pretty proud of that. It took me a while, and I placed the shit out of it at not GaryCon, the other one, GameholeCon. I ran that one scenario like 3 or 4 times during that convention, and every time it was really great. But by then, I only had half of it written, and even half of it written, and it was still tremendous. I mean, everybody had a great time, and it was a lot of fun for me to run. But since then, I've taken the time to really like nail down what I wanted to, and yeah, it's very cool. The only thing I'm not 100% on is the name. The tentative name is Planetary Development, but that's just kind of like a stand-in. It's kind of a boring name, so it might change to something else. But it's going to be at the back of the Encounter Critical 3 PDF. So when you pick that up, you'll get the other one, and it's going to be PDF only for right now. But that's because when I come out with book 4 of the Chult trilogy, I want that to be included in the appendix. So I think that's it. And with that, I should also go because, as you can see, it's my bedtime. And if Benja doesn't get his 40 winks, he turns into pumpkin or something. Also, get this bad boy, 360 pages. I can't wait until Pundit reviews this bad boy.
Well, it's on the review pile, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah.
Who thinks
it's
that
coming.
Pundit is going to have some sort of like brain aneurysm from reviewing this? I do.
Well, I don't know. I mean,
It's
your
coming.
recent products have been improving over your earlier ones, so that's something.
Well, this is going to be a giant step backwards.
Okay.
He probably won't read the whole thing. I could tell from his review of my book. He'll just skim some.
Well, that's what reviewers do now. Reviewers like
If
read
he
the
does, he
headlines.
won't understand it. So.
They kind of go over the whole like 200-page book in an hour, and then they flip through it and like, oh yeah, this over here, that thing
What
over
a
there.
hipster thing to say,
That's what
Joe.
YouTube reviewers do now.
You guys just don't understand my book. It's too sophisticated for you. Come on.
Too awesome. It's
Wait,
too
Venger,
sophisticated and too awesome.
wait, Venger. I have one
Yeah.
one final lighthearted question before you go.
Yes.
How
What is that?
has it gone since everyone on Kiwi Farms has now seen your wife's boobs? Like how does that go in your household?
Kiwi Farms has been gone for a while.
It posted some pretty explicit pictures. How did that go?
I don't know. You should send me a link because I don't know anything about that.
Oh.
I've never. Are you sure it's my current relationship and not a prior one? Because
I have no idea. No idea.
Okay, I used to
what
take.
was on Kiwi Farms, and I told you
This will probably surprise you. This will probably surprise you. But I used to take a lot of like erotic photos of like previous girlfriends, but I don't think I've ever shot any nude stuff with my wife. So, they probably have like pictures that I took and put up on like web TV or web TV or MySpace.
Where can we get all your porn, Venger? I think inquiring minds want to know.
Half of our viewers have now left the stream and are probably headed to Kiwi Farms. Thank you for that, Job. Well done.
Yeah, I almost missed them because they went out of business like a month or two ago. I didn't know that they were back.
Yeah, they're
I'll
back.
have to check that out too. But if you want, I just go to what X Hamster. That's where I go to. I mean, that's where I get mine. Or what? What's the other one? Pornhub. That's good. Oh, they just got sued. So I don't know if they're going to be around too much longer either. Maybe Pornhub and Kiwi Farms could combine to like Kiwi Hub. I don't know. Just spitballing. All right. Venger out. See you guys. Have a good night.
Wait. Come
Thanks.
on, Venger. Don't leave us. Come on. Can you tell what we need some more porn sites. You go to one porn site? That's how much porn you watch?
No, I gave you two. I gave you two.
From Venger. He's
We
from
need some more
Wisconsin.
porn, Venger.
You could go to Google and just type in boobs, and eventually you'll find something.
That's what Wisconsinites do, apparently.
Oh my God! All right, you're dismissed. Chris Miller to the rescue with another what do you call it? Super chat. Chris Miller for $10. Coming 2023 Mad Scribe magazine, a new tabletop gaming magazine, print and PDF that will feature exclusive interviews, game reviews, adventures, fan fiction. I don't know about that, etc. Find it anywhere books are sold. Wow. Old.
There you go, Chris. I suggest you reconsider the fan fiction. Maybe short fiction or something like that at most, but not fan fiction, for God's sake. But other than that, it sounds like you've got Job's seal of approval. I don't know. What do you think about that, Job? Actually, do you think that there's a market still for that type of zine in the modern hobby?
I don't know. I mean, I would recommend anybody that wants to make a zine like that to do it.
Yeah.
Even if there's like 3 issues, it's like, years later, it's cool to collect those and like get someone's.
Yeah. Well, I mean, zines have never been the surest thing. Like for every Dragon magazine that you've got that gets whatever 200 and some issues, most most gaming type zines, if they're lucky, last 5 issues, right? Amberzine lasted 10, I believe, right? And that was never. I mean, that they ended up being hugely influential in Amber Diceless. You know, everybody, you could tell who were like the really serious Amber players because they had the Amberzines. But yeah, you've got to have realistic expectations of anything like that. And I mean, in this day and age, the question is like, what can you put in it that will make it be different than going to a website or than just buying some PDFs of your choice, right? It's got to be done in a very clever way. But I know that Chris Miller is a very clever guy. So I mean, he got into publishing my book. So I think that he's likely to make an interesting product anyway. And you know, I might write a couple of articles in there. Who knows?
Yeah. Well, I will say you're probably going to lose money in Madscribe games, but I also suggest that you do it because.
Well, he just said, "I don't care if it makes money. I've always wanted to create one." That's always a good spirit in this hobby of ours.
Yeah. Okay. Screen, which is.
Sorry, go right ahead.
I'm selling my fucking Book of Antitheses. Nobody's buying the book anymore. The books sales are flat, so now you got to buy it. If you're ever not going to buy it, then you were going to buy it, then you should buy it.
Hipster turtleneck.
Oh my god! Don't you realize I'm just making fun of Magic? I'm making fun of you, but it's also real.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that you don't actually take it all that seriously, but you know, if you're not going to take it seriously, then you might as well do it the most hardcore and traditional way that you can do it. You know.
Well, I also take it seriously.
Well, I mean, you can't. You know, I've always said, right, that 90% of everything in modern occultism is crap, and everything in 90% of all historical occultism was crap, right? So it's hard to take it seriously as in any of its movements, right? Like Thelema is ridiculous, the Golden Dawn people are ridiculous, Wicca is ridiculous, Chaos Magic is ridiculous, the Neo Grimoire tradition is ridiculous, right? The folk magic people are ridiculous. It's all they're all just ludicrous, and it's perfectly understandable why normies who look at any of these think that magic is all just bullshit, right? But you have to have once you can accept that, then you can forget about all of the posturing, right? Because the reason it's ridiculous is that almost everybody who's doing it is just kind of cosplaying, right? They're doing a LARP, which you see in many other social phenomena too, right? Of course, a ton of environmentalists are doing LARPing, right? And a ton of you know, religious conservatives are doing LARPing, right? They might not think they are, but essentially they are. They're putting on a set of trappings to identify and win popularity with a certain social group, right? And that is essentially LARPing. It's not. They're not actually believing in what they're doing. They're not actually taking what they're doing seriously, right? Because taking anything seriously requires enormous levels of discipline, and it requires that you're going to have to change. And so many of these movements, and you can say some of this about RPGs too, right? Are all the shitty ones are based on this idea that you change, you look and act a certain way, and then you don't have to change. You don't have to actually improve at anything, right? And that's a ton of people buy into that, right? I think it was Muktananda Swami said the reason there are so many fake so many fake gurus out there is because there are so many fake students out there, you know. And it's the same with magic and with religion and with social movements. And in gaming, you know, there's a ton of people in gaming, not so much in a hardcore area like the OSR, right? But I mean, look at 5th edition. Look at whatever's the most popular thing in gaming, and you see that it's full of people who are being performative and who are being dedicated to essentially having it be a social environment for them, and so they're only really interested in gaming as long as it lets them peacock in some way. Okay. Good rebuttal there. OSR Edgelord says Pundit hates it, so I'll buy it. I don't know if he means, I guess he must mean the Book of Antithesis. So there you go. You probably got yourself a sale out of my hatred. I don't actually hate it. I just don't think it's very useful. I do think one of the things, if you haven't watched my review, there's two different parts to the book, because I guess Job didn't know enough magic stuff to write about to fill an entire book. So he did half of the book about his weirdo, DMing magic, and the other half of the book is an adventure. I don't know how much of that you wrote, or was it all the other guy, or what's going on there? But the other half
is the
is
artist. That's all he did is the art.
So you wrote the adventure yourself.
Yeah.
You researched it. You did the whole deal. Okay. Well, I'm kind of more impressed with your level of research into the adventure than anything else you did in that book. Then, but
yes,
anyway,
I was hoping for that, dude. Everything in there is actually totally historical. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm coming from now, and it's fucked up, but like Ra Renberg,
except all the really fucked up stuff that you put in there, right? But all the background is historical. Yes, that's right. And I like that it's kind of a sequel to Better Than Any Man in a way. But you also decided very clearly in that adventure that your goal was to like gross out and offend as many people as humanly possible, right? That was, let's face it, that was the active goal of the whole deal, right? How could you be as totally offensive as you could manage to get, without being arrested?
Pundit, it's all archetypes. It's all commentary. The parts that I hate are the things that I'm throwing out there is like totally absurd, like cannibal pregnant children. That's because society is so sick.
So you're saying it's modern political satire? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, very subtle. I mean, no, it's not that you were very subtle about it. It's that the problem is that when you decide that the way to do that is by having an adventure where player characters have to murder naked, pregnant cannibal children, right? That instantly kind of means that people are not going to be thinking, oh, well, what's the deeper political message in this this adventure? They're going to be thinking, what the fuck is this, right?
Well, this is what Western culture is doing to children now. That's my point.
Yeah, but I mean, ironically, if your goal was to do modern day political commentary, you didn't push that hard enough in such a way that it would make an obvious parallel to whatever are the things that you're trying to criticize. Like I didn't look at that and say, oh well, this is clearly about drag queen story hour or something like that. I looked at that and I said, oh,
well,
this is.
Yeah, I didn't really write it for people at your intelligence level. All right, we got another super chat here. Cal Vanoni, even though he was talking shit about me earlier, gave us $20. Thank you very much, Cal Vanoni. Hate me harder. And he said, thanks to our hosts. Thank you for showing up. Our little. Okay.
Patty Spoiler says, Pundit, you sound like you don't trust anyone. Well, I just know that there's an awful lot of people that get involved in all kinds of things in their lives as a way to not have to change, right? So it doesn't matter whether I trust you or not, Patty. It matters whether you trust yourself, right? If you look honestly at yourself and you ask whether what you're doing is a way to change yourself or is a way to avoid having to change. Jack TH71 says, I get everything from Mad Scribe Games. Well done. Patty's Farm says, anyway, I'm going to keep meditating in my garden whether or not I look like a LARPer, and it makes me feel good, and you're not my real dad. Well, if you're meditating in your garden alone, at the very least, you're trying to do something for yourself. Whether or not it's effective is another story. It may or may not be. Whether or not it's an evasion of something else you should be doing may or may not be. But if you're doing it alone, right away, that you're not doing it so you're going, look at me, to everybody else, right? Which is what a whole bunch of people who get into Magic do, right? Guys that go around trying to get to look like Anton LaVey, right? They're being performative. Yeah.
And they get on the screen with their Rubik's Cubes.
Yeah, hanging around, holding Rubik's Cubes to look like an intellectual. That's being performative. And if you're doing something, the first thing is, if you're trying to do anything serious in terms of self-transformation, is you should, just to be safe, do it and make sure that in your public life, you look like as normal a person as possible, right? Because then there's no way that you're doing it just to show off.
I want to read a great comment from Charlotte Williams. A sizable amount of the RPG marketplace are people looking to buy something to play with their kids. Your book has a full frontal shot of a hermaphrodite goat demon.
I think that she encapsulates what I was trying to say better than I did. So thank you for that, Charlotte.
Yeah, well, you're talking about your, full frontal with hermaphrodite goat demons with your children, obviously.
Yeah, but when people see the hermaphrodite goat demon drawing being as offensive as possible, they don't go, "Oh, this must be, a commentary on Nancy Pelosi," or something. Like, that's not what people do,
We're all fools, cretins. You.
Adina Diaz Knight gets us back on topic by saying, so does anyone in publishing know what it will do to the price of a book if WotC really does have 3 consultants per book? That's a very good question. Obviously, those costs have to go somewhere, but it depends. It could go into their profits, right? Because they might not be allowed. I'm not sure if the people doing the game design are allowed to determine the price, maybe it will be. Maybe it'll be an excuse to raise the prices, and that'll be even worse for them, right? But the part of the thing is they might not actually do this. Like, there's some people that said, well, maybe they're just saying that. And I guess that's possible. But there's so many wokeists inside Wizards that if that's what happens and they don't now do what they said they were going to do, somebody is going to leak it, right? And then to virtue signal. And then all of the wokeists on Twitter are going to go crazy and start attacking Wizards worse. And so then Wizards will have to do something even more radical to placate them, because they have to placate them because they themselves are part of the wokeist crowd, right? So I'm guessing that they really are going to do it. They're really going to have, multiple. They're going to have 3 diversity consultants for every actual game designer, and they're going to be checking every single word to determine if it's problematic. And I think that, first of all, the price may or may not go up, but the quality of all these products, because they'll have to make everything even blander than now, because diversity consultants will want to justify their existence. They're not just going to be looking at this and going, yeah, that's fine, right? No, they're going to figure out something, right? They said, I don't know, you hear you say the skill of magic, right? Well, that's offensive to people that are unskilled, so they're going to be changing words and making modifications just for its own sake, and you're going to end up with products that are going to be even less coherent and even more bland and even more dumb than the ones that they've been coming out with recently. Well, let's give Venger a little bit of credit, right? Is that Chalt, whatever you want to say about it, I wouldn't say it's exactly bland, right? You could say sometimes it's moronic, right? But he's always got crazy shit. It's probably too random for its own good. It's like I did a video where I think it was my review of Chalt, the original book, where I talk about how there's weird fantasy, gonzo fantasy, and then there's stupid gonzo fantasy, and Venger falls into that. And the one thing you can say in his defense is that Chult is a really good example of stupid gonzo, right? So if you like stupid gonzo, if you want it to be almost cartoonish, and that doesn't bother you, it's one of the best books you could get, right? But if that kind of cartoonish stupid gonzo is not up your alley, you're not going to like that book. What else have we got here?
I just want to have more. We're winding it down. So if you guys ask us,
I do know the
lots of money, do that too.
I do know the S-Night says, what will the production cycle be? Will those 3 consultants be on deadlines, or will they be able to push out of the book indefinitely? Well, the consultants will probably say that deadlines are an act of colonialism, right? So that they shouldn't be expected to follow them. So I'm guessing that, yeah, I mean, obviously, if you triple the number of people working on a book, that potentially slows down the book, you know, and the problem is that if these are the political commissars, they're the people that decide if you get canceled or not. Who the hell is going to try to stand up to them? Who's going to tell them, look, you got to get this fucking in, right? You got to complete it by next Tuesday, or else we're not going to be able to publish, right? Who's going to say that to them? So yeah, I can expect that could be another real problem. Sure. Chris Miller says, I once saw some kind of socialist convention in California, and they argued for 48 hours straight over semantics and never got past the opening ceremonies. The same thing will happen in every new D&D book. Yeah, quite possibly. OSR Edgelord says Brutal Blades.
Yes, I am working on Brutal Blades for the people asking about Brutal. I've got a character generator created.
All right, there you have it. You gonna send me a review copy of that one, Joe?
Yeah, I'll send you.
Of course you are. You know why? Because even if I absolutely pan a product, it sells more books. So this is why everybody sends me their books.
I think I gotta. You know what? I didn't get a single sale from the last video that I free got. The book's been out for over a year. Dungeon Craft or something. Never gonna be on Dungeon Craft because it's that Aphrodite goat deep octopus.
Well, I think there's a certain market for that, right? And so like that market is small. You know, like you're not gonna get the guy that wants to, you know, that likes to play in Greyhawk buying that book, you know. Like, now, you know, old products sometimes still sell, you know, like I'm still making money every single month off of Arrows of Indra. That was like from 2013.
Yeah.
Not making
the product I've made most of my RPG money off of ever is D&D Adventurers League thing that I wrote that they fucking butchered. Maybe 30% of my words are still in the fucking thing. I get like $1,000 a year.
That's still pretty good. Because how long ago was that?
That?
How long ago was that?
Oh,
that you wrote it?
A while ago,
2014.
Yeah, so like, yeah, I was like every year, like 2015.
Yeah. Well, you know, like the last time I published a book for Dom Publishing, right? So I published Lion and Dragon, Dark Albion, and Cults of Chaos for them, right? And so the last one of those was Cults of Chaos. It was published in July 2016. So that's now 6 years ago, right? And this year, I'm gonna still make somewhere between 5 and 10 grand in royalties just from the Dom Publishing books. So it's when you've got the right kind of books, sometimes you can keep getting some very good returns.
Very nice.
Conflict says, Job, do not send Pundit a review copy. They have to, Job. Everyone has to, because that's the sales. It's the point of sending the review isn't for me to approve of it. Isn't because they want my blessing or something like that. It's because my videos get a lot of views. Right?
Oh my God, not that many, Pundit.
But
You're so conceited. You think you're the shit. You really aren't. I mean, you're
well,
great. You're an awesome guy. I really like you, but
you send a book to that's going to get that much attention.
I mean, I would send you some kickbacks if I got a lot of sales off of your videos, but I just send you some free.
All right. When did I review your
I
book?
got a good fucking microphone. Why is my shit breaking up?
Book of Antitheses. So far, my review of Book of Antitheses has 1,850 views on it. Right. So that's better money spent by sending that book, which you didn't send it. Raggy did, right? But sending
Well,
me that.
I told him to do it.
Yeah, I'm sure, but he sent a shitload of his books to me all at once, right?
Fuck, there goes my back.
And sending that book, he gets more guaranteed interested audience looking at that than he would putting up a banner ad on Facebook or something like that, right? So it's obviously a better advertising opportunity for him in a way, even if I pan his books. Patty's Parlor said, "Gonna send Pundit my war game. I'd rather Brutal Honest than the next book is better." Here's the thing, Patty. Anyone who sends me books has to keep in mind that I live in a shithole South American country, and I can get books here okay, right? Like if it's a physical book and that's it. But send anything else, and there's, first of all, massive import tax. Books don't pay import tax, right? But for example, games do. So if you send me anything in a box, if you were trying to send me a box set or anything that dice or miniatures or anything else, right? Anything other than an actual book with, just the covers and the paper, then there's a very good chance that it will either be lost in the mail, it'll be stolen, or that it'll be held by the customs in exchange for a bribe or stuff like that, right? So I always tell people that you probably should not send me anything that isn't just a physical book, right? Anything else is likely to not actually make it to my door. Jack TH71 says, "I'm still using Dark Albion and Cults of Chaos." Robbie MAQ says, "Venture is practicing magic right now. Wink." Patty's Parlor says, "We need to fix Job's mic or connection. It keeps dropping his words like his publisher did."
Yeah. Oh, I pinned that one. That was a good one.
It's almost like he's cursed or something, huh?
I am cursed. I'm very cursed.
Judd Goswick says, "I buy games months before they make it to Uruguay." Chris Miller says, "As Pundit's publisher, I'm obligated to disagree, Job." Thank you, Chris. Patty's Parlor says, "Pundit's just living up to the final boss title. He can't lose street cred for the niceties like compliments." Well, I give compliments to, rarely, but when I do, you know that they're sincere. My insults aren't always sincere, but my compliments always are. Patty's Parlor says, "Pundit's salt for WotC is keeping their company alive. They're buying just to keep him alive." I'm not too sure about that, Patty, because WotC is Hasbro after all. They're a multinational corporation, and I don't think my salt affects them very much one way or the other. That's not what I make when I'm doing videos about Wizards of the Coast, or like this live chat. I suspect Job will agree and Benjamin would agree if he was still here. The point isn't that we think we're going to take down Hasbro, right? One of the largest multinationals in the world or something like that. The point is we're trying to convince people who are gamers and who care about gaming not to give money to a business that is intentionally creating products that are meant to attack the people that would normally buy those products, right? So don't give money to people who despise you. Okay, Patty, so if your game is just a book, even if it's a zine format or whatever, but as long as it's nothing other than paper product, then you could probably send it. Yeah. Adina S9 says that makes me wonder how that deluxe fantasy trip cover ever made it to the pundit. Well, first of all, because at the time that they sent that, there was slightly different regulations, and unfortunately, one of the things the conservative government here hasn't done is turned back the ridiculous importing rules that they created, that the socialists created in the previous government. But yeah, so that one got in, and it was like one of the last box sets I ever got. For a while there, Columbia Games was sending me a lot of war games, and some other people are sending me box set stuff, the Doctor Who box set and stuff like that. And it was fine, right? But then they kind of like tightened up the importing rules, and it's become just ridiculous.
We got a question from Redshift. He said, Pundit, have you seen A Dark Song, and how bad or good is it?
I have not seen A Dark Song. What is that? Okay. Apparently it's some kind of an indie movie from 2016 or something like that. Irish British independent horror film. No, I haven't seen it. I'm sorry. I couldn't really say.
Oh shit. I've seen that. Oh yeah, I saw that movie. It was good.
It might be good or not. I don't know. What I know is that most movies or TV shows ostensibly about the occult tend to not be particularly accurate, because a lot of occultism in the real world doesn't translate all that excitedly into into the genre of TV or movie dramas. There was this TV
Elon
series.
Musk is a wizard.
Sorry?
I think Elon Musk is a wizard.
That's a good question. I don't know what his personal practices are, but I think that he's certainly tapped into a kind of invocation of a certain archetype, right? Like the same archetype that, I mean, like there's a reason he named his car company Tesla, right? Like it's that, because Nikola Tesla wasn't a wizard either, but he had some of these same qualities of like, I guess you could say the archetype of the ancient inventor, the innovator, the Prometheus figure, right? And now like that includes the fact that he's trying to give light to mankind. He's stealing flame from the gods, that is to say, the blue check marks, and giving it to common humanity, right? Like it's so there's definitely stuff that you can see that is in that style, right? Of an archetypal figure. But yeah, I don't know if he's an occultist. I think probably the best TV show or movie that I've ever seen that tried to depict like occultism in a historical sense was and it wasn't super great, but it wasn't bad, was Strange Angel, which was the TV show based on the life of Jack Parsons, who was a real life occultist, and I thought that was fairly cleverly done. It had its weird moments, but it was pretty good. But they didn't go too deep into the occultism part of it.
Got a question from the peanut gallery for you, Pundit, from DM James to us. Pundit, what do you think about a role-playing book about lesbians written by a biological male?
I don't know what to think about that. Any opinions, Job? I don't know.
Well, I mean, making a joke about thirsty sword lesbians.
Yeah.
I actually haven't read it. I saw it like won any award. I watched Mercy and Dragons did a video about what I thought it was.
I mean, I think there's certainly money for certain grifters to make off of performative wokeness, because I don't think like Thirsty Sword Lesbians is not like almost all of those types of books. It's not a book that's made to be played. It's made so you can show people on Twitter or on Tumblr or on Mastodon or wherever they are, whatever ghetto they're in now that they're running away from Elon, to show that you've bought it, right? To show your support for it, to retweet it. Like that's what it is, right? And so it's all about anything other than actually gaming. The whether they ever actually play it or not is completely irrelevant to the experience of owning it.
All right, guys, we're about to go. You got to ask any more last minute questions. Covered everything.
I think we pretty much did for today. So our video would be, let me just double check here. Today is this was the 20th. So I guess that assuming that everybody can make it, our next video would be on the 18th. Is that right? 18th of December, yeah. All right.
Thanks everybody for coming out.
This is a pretty weird episode, but I hope you enjoyed it. I think that Job was in a fighting mood, so there you go. We were touching some weird topics, but I'm glad you guys liked it. Apparently, we'll see you in 4 weeks, I guess. Check out my channel, meanwhile.